Let's unmute that. Hi, everyone. Alan Chilch here, Chief of Police for the town, and we're 10-8 and in service, which means we're here to make people's lives better, and we do that by safeguarding the lives, rights, and property of the people we serve. Thank you for joining us live. If you have questions, this is a live show, so go ahead and throw it in the chat. I'll try to get to it live during the air. I'm monitoring both Facebook and YouTube, so if you're on either platform, I'll be happy to answer live during the show, and if I can't get to it then, I'll answer it afterwards in the chat. We've been pushing a lot of stuff out on social media about the heat, fire prevention, power outages, all that. If you remember, for about 8 weeks, we went over the FEMA All Hazards Guide, and now we're rolling into the Wildfire Preparedness and Evacuation Guide. So we'd recommend you go download the Wildfire Preparedness and Evacuation Guide. Make sure you sign up for Community Warning System through the Contra Costa County Office of the Sheriff. Go to PG&E's website. It was actually very useful yesterday during the power outage. And then download that FEMA All Hazards Guide. Do me a favor. If you had your power out yesterday and you had, let me put a little bit of flavor on this. It's never going to be a positive experience. But if due to something you've done to prepare, you had a positive experience, in other words, it didn't hit you so harshly, or maybe you were able to mitigate the impact, let me know what that was in the comments. I'm curious, and I think we can all kind of learn from that. And frankly, every time I have the power go out at my house, I learn something new. And I'll share with you, this time, I was actually pretty proud of my kids. I had texted them. I was actually at the council meeting last night when the power went out. One of my kids texted me, and he's like, "Dad, you want me to pull the generator out and plug it in so we don't lose the food?" And I was like, that is such a win, right? So not only as a family are we prepared, and we have some of the tools that we need to kind of mitigate some of the damage that may occur. I'd hate to throw out a whole fridge full of food, but also some of my family members. It's not just me pulling that weight, some of my family members. So kudos to the Shields family at home, because everybody had it rolling. And thanks to my wife, she actually went down to one of my favorite restaurants, La Conda Ravello, and picked me up some salmon, and that was waiting for me when I got home. So it was great. So the Shields family, A+ on that one. They did great. By the time I got home, I had no worry. And so, as law enforcement officers, when it comes to major disaster and emergency preparedness, we have to come into work. And part of having to come into work when something really, really bad happens means we have to make sure our families are prepared at home. So a day like yesterday, although not a big deal, the power was out for 2 or 3 hours. It's certainly inconvenient. I don't like it. But it was a little test that shows me that my family is prepared. So if you have a story or you have something that you can let us know how you had some success, if your power went out, I'd really be interested to hear it. I do watch the chat. So even if you're catching us after it's live, please throw it in there. All right, we're going to move on to crime, communitycrimemap.com. You can check, you can zoom in, you can get alerts to your phone, and you can also get information on sexual offenders on there as well. Not too bad for accidents, actually. June 24th through the 30th, and we had 2 injury collisions. One was kind of in our downtown area. The other one, if you look, it's actually both of them were downtown. I don't know why they're geolocating to the wrong spot there, but first one was on the 26th, and it was a vehicle into a bike rack in the parking lot of 85 Railroad. There was no injuries there. On the 27th, we had a cyclist that collided to an open door of a parked car on Railroad Avenue at Linda Mesa, and they sustained minor injuries there. On to crime. If we could erase one day, we'd have had a great week. On the 26th, we had a theft of a catalytic converter, and that occurred sometime between the 1st and the 12th of June, and it was taken from a Toyota Highlander on the 100 block of Town and Country Drive. On the 28th, we had a few crimes. We had a theft from a couple unlocked vehicles on the 800 block of Padva, and that occurred sometime over the night. On the 28th, we also had a report of a vehicle that was stolen from in front of the home on 1000 block of San Ramon Valley Boulevard. It was later recovered in Oakland, and the theft was reported to have occurred sometime between 4 a.m. and 11 a.m. And then the last one on the 28th, there was a theft of a bicycle from a carport that was on the 1000 block of San Ramon Valley Boulevard, and that was at 4:49 a.m., and we know that because that particular crime was caught on camera. So if you look at those 3 crimes, they all occurred in the same area, seem to be connected. And then we had, on the 30th, we had the theft of an electric motorcycle, and that was on the 600 block of San Ramon Valley Boulevard in the shopping center there. Now, if you look, what do I have listed there? 5 crimes, a lot more targets on there. One of the things that happened was we actually had a license plate that was reported stolen. And later, and this is kudos to the person reporting it, they later found that it had fallen off on the from the car while they were at the car wash. They reported it to us. So it actually takes that crime away, although it still shows up on the map there. And so we do get that from time to time. Onto the arrest log, June 24th through the 30th. 2 arrests. We did have one that was a domestic violence related arrest that doesn't make this log. And that's just to serve as a reminder that domestic violence does happen. Please make sure that if you are a victim or a witness to it, that you report it and let us know. It does happen here in town, though. On the 25th, we had a man that was arrested and released for DUI after being stopped on the 700 block of San Ramon Valley Boulevard. And then on the 29th, this was kind of a slow speed pursuit, but we arrested a man after he used his vehicle to flee. One of our officers from a traffic enforcement stop, she tried to stop him for CVC violations, and he fled for a bit. After a few miles, he ended up complying, pulling over, and was arrested and sent to jail. All right, so one of the things we're going to cover, we're going to start this series on wildfire preparedness. Kind of the right time to do it. The hills are pretty brown. I went hiking up Las Trampas on Sunday, super hot, and you could see all of Mount Diablo was brown. And so I really want people to be prepared. If you remember several years ago when Lieutenant Jason Ingrassi was here, we had the wildfires that happened in Vacaville. The reason I'm bringing that up, not because it happened here, but because both Jason and I, as a matter of mutual aid, responded up there. And we made some on-the-ground observations. And some of them that we'll cover here really do tie into keeping all of you safe. The biggest one in our, kudos to our fire district, they have a really strong presence with the weed abatement and clearing defensible space and all that, because that seems to be, when you talk about communities starting fire in the way that we've seen some of them, that seems to be it. When we were in Vacaville, you could literally see, as we would drive down the road, there would be some homes that were, it looked like there had been a lot of brush and debris close to homes, and those homes are completely gone. And then you'd have some homes where there were lawn areas and manicured areas, and they were watered, and it was clean of debris. There wasn't hardly anything near the house, and it was like an oasis of a home and green in this area of fire. So may not 100% save your home, but it gives your home and your property the best chance of not catching fire. All right, so we're going to go over that. This can be found. There is a link in the description. You can download this, and I would just go over it and then throw it in the cabinet, like we talk about with the FEMA All Hazards Guide. What it's going to do is it's going to help you to prepare your house, make sure you have a plan, a kit. How do you stay informed, and then work with your neighbors? We'll cover some terminology real quick. Fire weather watch just means that there are conditions that are set that would mean that if a fire were to occur, it would, or it's favorable for a fire to occur, and it's favorable for those fires to move quickly. Red flag warning means we need to be careful of open flames. An evacuation warning means, and this is something we've talked about before between an evacuation warning and order. A warning is simply saying there's an area that may potentially be affected by an evacuation order. An order is get out now. The reason we like issuing evacuation warnings in a lot of cases is it allows us a little bit more time to give you an opportunity so that if you have special needs, maybe you don't walk so well, maybe you need assistance, maybe you need to get to a neighbor's house so that they can drive you somewhere, that you are afforded as much time as possible to make your personal decision to move. And we want to make sure that people are aware of that. And in future shows, we're going to cover Zonehaven and things like that will help with knowing your zone. Shelter in place. A lot of times you'll actually see this when there's not necessarily a fire, but there may be some other issue in place. Rescue and recovery. This talks about how we secure an area and work to find people. A safety zone is an area where we can send people where we believe there's not going to be much risk of fire, and it's an area where if you're going to evacuate and you may not know where to go, you can go to those safety zones. And then a Zonehaven zone, those are Genesis. It used to be called Zonehaven, but it's Genesis is the company now. Those are zones that are pre-designated. It's actually a countywide program. It's actually used all over the state. But in Danville, we have small zones, and you can go to the map right now, to the Zonehaven map, and you can see what your zone is. And what it does a couple things. One, it allows you a location where you can check and see, is your neighborhood in an evacuation warning, an evacuation order, or if those things have happened, is it time to come back home and go back to your neighborhood? So that's the communication side of it. For the police department, we can actually run simulations at certain times a day with certain fire sizes covering certain areas. And what it'll do is it'll help us do traffic loads and counts and simulate what an evacuation would look like, where we may need to put key personnel to free up traffic so that we can get traffic moving. Here's what I'll say to that, though. There's not an officer in Danville, and certainly not the lieutenant or I, who don't know those choke points already where we would need to deploy resources to. And so that is something we already know, but it is a good way to brush up on those skills and get that going. All right, so if we are in a red flag warning, if we're on hot days like this where it could spark, what can we do to prevent the fire, right? The best way to keep this from happening is to keep the fire from starting to begin with and not have to worry about the evacuation at all. So if you're going to use equipment, mow before 10, try to avoid metal blades striking rocks. Look at the heat that comes off your exhaust. Campfire safety. Certainly I know up on Mount Diablo, there is no campfire. Don't start fires up on the ridge either. And then when you're at your home, if you can use those spark arresters on those backyard pits, if we're doing s'mores, would be great. Vehicle maintenance. I have actually seen this on the road where those chains that drag will actually arc up and start fire. I've seen it where vehicle brakes get so heated that when parked near little weeds and whatnot that are growing out of the pavement, that they've caught fire. We've actually had some where pursuits have terminated in a field of grass and caught the field of grass on fire because of the exhaust on the car. So the vehicle can be a huge source of ignition for some of these fires. And then debris burning, not too much of a problem around here. I know some of our country homes out east will have a little bit of this, but this is not the time to be doing your burns and whatnot. What can you do? We talked about defensible space. What can you actually do to prepare your home? And believe it or not, this doesn't, like, I live in the small home with the small yard in town. So I know that some of this may not apply to me, but effectively a lot of this applies to all of us because fires can spread through a community if there's enough accelerants in place for them to stay ignited and spread. So really, no matter how big your home is, you want a defensible space around your home. So if you look, zone 1 is really anything within 30 feet of your home. All we drive around town and we see this. We see the dead vegetation growing on the side of the wall, the roof that has now not been watered and is brown. That is kindling for that fire. You want to keep the tree limbs away from the house. It's not only good for fires, but it's also good for pests and things like that. And then make sure you have a proper fire-resistant roof on your structure. What does it look like? Zone 1 is at 30 feet. Zone 2 is anything out to about 100 feet. And what do we do in zone 2? Dead, dying vegetation is gone. Keep wood piles and combustible in that zone, so don't keep them in 30 feet. Make sure the grass is cut and cleared. If you look on the Iron Horse Trail area, East Bay Regional Parks is really knocking down a lot of that for us, so kudos to them. That's great for us. And then keep wood fences and deck away from the home. Look in the upper left, though. This is one that I think is really key. These are some key points. Have a go kit by the door, and we'll actually cover a go pit kit in a future episode. But essentially, those are the things that you need to grab, get in your car, and leave. And if you can, and this is if you ever drive by the Shields house, you'll see we back our cars in. It's just safer, quicker, and easier to drive out of your driveway or a parking spot when you're driving forward versus in reverse. Battery backup for your garage door. I know yesterday during our power outage, we were able to get our cars out because we had a battery backup on our garage door opener. Otherwise, you should know how to manually open it and lift it. And if you need assistance, then do that. And all else fails, at least leave one of your cars if you think you might struggle if there's a fire, a power outage, in getting that garage door open. If you think you may struggle, our recommendation is leave your car or a car out front so that you won't have to overcome that obstacle. You can get in your car and you can leave. All right, that's all I have. So if you have any tips on, the wildfire preparedness, preparing your home, throw them in the description. Also, yesterday's power outage, if you did something that you were like, hey, this is a total win. We had a generator ready. We had neighbors that we could store our food with, whatever it was that made it less painful when the power went off. Let me know. I'm interested. As far as our 4th of July parade, happy 4th. We are going to have a lot of people down there, but please remember, it's going to be really, really hot. The parade route's going to take you from Harts Avenue down to San Ramon Valley Boulevard, and it's going to run from about 9 a.m. to noon. We're going to start shutting the roads down around 5. It's going to be expected to be about 95 degrees, so please make sure you stay hydrated. Of course, dogs are always allowed, but this may not be the 4th of July for them. So it may be too hot. We may want to keep them at home. I can tell you the pavement is scorching hot, and it will burn their paws. And then streets along the routes are closed, so please kind of be mindful of that. Here's the other. If you have like medical conditions or issues, really consider what your options are. If you can be in an area where maybe you're closer to your car, or if you want to just maybe sit this one out, but really make that decision. It's going to be hot, it's going to be long, and it can sometimes take a while to get in and out of traffic. Here's some good news, though. We do have a handicap area, and the Kiwanis Club is actually doing this really cool shuttle. So if you go to the Crossroads Shopping Center, easy way to get there, you get off on Diablo Road. Once you hit Front Street, take Front Street all the way down past the Taco Bell and just go straight into that shopping center parking lot. That is our handicap parking. You can then catch a shuttle, and they will use a golf cart to take you right to the handicap seating area, so you can get right there. So they're really doing it up. They're not making it difficult at all. So kudos to the Kiwanis, among other things. All right, make sure you download the Wildfire Preparedness and Evacuation Guide. We're going to go over it for the next 2 or 3 weeks. Make sure you sign up for the community warning system from the Contra Costa County Office of the Sheriff. Go to the PG&E website. Yesterday, they were giving out really good tips. So really, really good, or not tips, but updates. They were giving out really good updates about how many residents were affected, when power would be back on, when power was back on. It worked out real well. Didn't like the situation, but I did like the communication. And then download the FEMA All Hazards Guide. It's a great way to be prepared for those events. I can tell you, I don't like the power going out, but it seems like every time it goes out, the Shields family just does a little bit better each time, and it makes it really good for us. So we're able to get that going. All right. The other thing is too, if you have a topic that you would like us to recover, let us know. This is your show. This is your information channel. This is for you. And so if you've got something that you'd like information on, over the years that we've been doing this, we have expanded it. We've kind of taken deeper dives. You asked for more detailed descriptions on penal and vehicle codes when those are relevant to the topics. So we are taking a little bit more deeper dive on that. But it's your show. So if you have a recommendation, let us know. With that, we're 10:10, which means we're off duty. Not really. It's 4th of July tomorrow. We're working pretty hard, but we're always 10:08 in service to all of you. Have a good night, Danville.